Elven Fencer is a great utility damage class that can heal, evade spam, put evade on allies, as well as deal good damage and shut enemies down. It's kind of like a spell sword. It actually literally is a spell sword. It's very interesting because it can also cleanse debuffs and do other things that are quite good. It tends to have kind of average or above average initiative. So in this case, we have two, one with initiative 21, one with initiative 20. Notice the other Fencer is only 2 levels lower, so they're pretty similar. Offensive, defensive stats, and defensive precise. Now defensive, I don't know that it really wants to be defensive. It's not bad, but growth types could be better on both of these. But physical attack is decent, magic attack is higher, accuracy is good. These classes have good evasions. They're kind of like passive evasion tanks. Crit rate is decent, guard rate is fine. They're both kind of average. Physical defense is decent, magic defense is higher, so more of a magic-oriented class that can tank magic better. If we actually look at the details, it has 5 stamina, can provide magic assist. It is sword, infantry, caster, elven. It has 100 mobility, so it is on the slower side. The actual description of this class: both short-range magic attacks can protect allies from long-range physical attacks, making them pair well with flying allies. So you could use this in a flyer squad. There's also other things it can do too. It's just a general good utility to run. So let's go over the skills. Lightning Blade. So I just did a video on this, testing this. So the way, if you have 2 things, if you have physical and magical potency and an attack, you get both. And it looks at your physical attack and your magical attack, the enemy's physical defense and their magical defense, subtracts their defensive values from your offensive values, and multiplies both by 0.75. So the Great Wood Sword, which gives physical and magical attack, does in fact scale the damage on this attack. Now this attack is very good. You get 100% hit rate, which is standard for most attacks, effectively 150 potency overall, you know, depending on their defensive stats, but you also inflict stun. This is the huge value from this. You inflict stun. So this is a support class that can shut down. And this is also only 1 active point. So they can stun like 2 to 3 things, 2 without Carnelian, 3 with Carnelian Pendant, so you get that extra attack. Or if you give them some kind of extra attacking, they can stun more things. So they have good damage and shutdown for low investment on the weapon side. And they can run different weapons too. Their next active skill, Nature's Wrath, unlocked at level 20. Attack a column of enemies with piercing magic. So this inflicts passive point -1 to cav targets, which is decent. It's something nice, but it's also a column attack that hits 100 magic potency. That's also ranged. So you can use this on the back row if it's undefended, for example, because it's a ranged attack. So this is a ranged attack. It's decent. This attack, however, I haven't gotten this, but this seems like it's quite good. Same offensive attributes as Lightning Blade, but it also attacks a row and grants the user the ability to evade an attack. So this is how these kind of become tanky. They have enough bulk that if they get hit, they typically survive, like an attack or a hit. But with the evade spam, as long as there's not enemy true attacks, they can really get some extra evades to just make them that much more survivable. And if they're backliners with evades, they're probably never really going to get hit. So it's quite good in that way. And then we have Sylphic Barrier. This is something that they start with because it's level 1, so you always have it. Activates before an ally is hit by ranged physical attack. Allow ally to evade 1 attack. This is quite good. You use this on your frontliners, and assuming that it's not a true hit, which would hit through this because it hits through evade, you basically just get to tank a ranged attack. And you can also use this on anyone, doesn't even matter. So you can just, for 1 passive point, evade a ranged attack. Doesn't matter what the ranged attack is, assuming that it's not true hit. Then we have Remove Weakness. Activates after the user is debuffed, and this is a passive, so it activates right away. Removes the user's debuff. Also note that Sylphic is limited, and this is not limited, which means that, for example, if another limited ability is used, you can still remove weakness. So if you use a limited ability on yourself and then you get debuffed, you can also cleanse it with this as well. And then also, after you get cleansed, grants the user a buff to evade 1 attack. So Mirage Stab gives you an evade, Remove Weakness gives you an evade, and then you have Evasive Impetus, activates after evading an attack, grants the user +1 action point. This is unlocked level 25, which both of my fences are about to get to. Getting action points for evading on a class that can give itself evade is pretty good, it turns out. It's quite good. So this combos with itself, basically, especially if you evade. But this is quite good. And then, of course, Ice Conferrals from an item. Then you have Thundercloud. Rain, lightning on a position, and damage all enemy units within range. Magic potency 50. Duration 20 seconds. Damage occurs every 2. So you can throw this on like a boss. You can throw this on like a fortified position just to weaken it. It is a little expensive, 2 Valor points, but now that you gain Valor so fast, I don't think it really matters. So it can be useful to use on like an enemy that's on an entrenched position just to deal some damage. So it's pretty decent. Alright, so for loadouts, let's go over... I don't think she has a loadout yet. I'll go over her loadout in a second, I'll give her one. Okay, so for Nature's Wrath, you can use this on calves. You can use this when it makes sense to, when you need the damage, but I usually just default to Lightning Blade. Inflicts stun. Stun is really good. It causes the user to become incapacitated. They still eventually get to use their action point, but they go way last. So if you stun a fast thing, assuming you can get higher initiative in the get-go, or it's taking this first action, has multiple action points, you can just delay enemies' turns and their offensive abilities while also dealing good damage. That's quite good. And then he also has Ice Conferral, which applies to an ally. Add magic damage and freeze, so 50% magic potency to allies' next attack, as well as a freeze. So the freeze plus the stun. This is a very shutdown-oriented build. Sylphic Barrier, prioritize front row. Typically, he's on a team that has a front row that's vulnerable to, you know, range attacks, but obviously true attacks hit through this still. It just allows an enemy, like if you're gonna get hit by something, it just allows your ally to dodge it, which is quite nice. So if you have a dodge tank in the front, if somehow it gets hit, you can still evade, but if it's a true hit, you'll need like a block or something. Then remove weakness, just removes weakness from the user, which is him. Removes the user's debuff, and then you get an evade. And then for items, I have Sorcerer's Medallion to really go hard on the magic attack, get some crit rate, a little bit of crit, not a ton. Frostbrand Tome for plus magic attack as well as Ice Conferral, and then Lapis Pendant for passive points, so that I can Ice Conferral and then Sylphic Barrier at least once, and then situationally I can toggle Ice Conferral if I need to spam Sylphic Barrier, for example. And then for weapons, this is a really good starting weapon. I haven't finished the Elven Lands, I'm like 90% done with it though. Runic Blade is good. Runic Sword is nice because 150 magic potency does deal more damage if the enemy especially has low magic defense. So using this over Lightning Blade is good, but Lightning Blade is good for hitting with hybrid damage, so it kind of is always good average damage. But this also allows you to super spike like an enemy armored. So you can run Runic on these and they're quite good at it. Also look at the stats on Runic. Does it look familiar? It has hybrid physical and magical attack, except it has slightly lower magical attack. But if you're targeting something with low magic defense, 150 magic potency, even at 2 less damage, is more damage than 75 magic potency, 75 physical potency. Because if you're attacking something with low magic defense, it probably has high physical, so half of that attack is going to be reduced. So if you need to just target specifically some like armor or something, running Runic Blade or Runic Sword with magic attack can be huge damage that can just one-shot, so pretty useful. Phantom Sword, kind of similar. So this inflicts passive point -1 as well as targets magic, but its potency is lower, but it also debuffs, so you could pull like a passive point off a gladiator, a passive point off a tank. Stun also is good because it prevents them from blocking things, so honestly, Lightning Blade is pretty sick, and this basic greatsword is fine. I'm sorry, great wood sword is totally fine. Now for this character, let's say we were building one, keeping her on Great Wood Sword is fine. I would prioritize this or have different rules for it. Maybe just have it be full column, and then enemy calves are present. So full column of calves, use this. Otherwise, default to this, and you can set up a rule for that. But for accessories, you can really go nuts with some of these. You could run something like Mage's Glove. So let's do something like this if we want a more offensive one. All right, so what she would do here, Mage's Glove is very interesting. You get magic counter. After an enemy attacks with an active skill, counter attack a single enemy with magic. But look at the potency on that. 150 potency. This is an ability that wizards have, and it's quite powerful. It's really good at punishing enemy tanks because it just hits them like a truck. So you're hitting with 43 magic attack with 150 potency. So basically, if it's like low magic defense, it's going to die almost immediately. But this allows the unit to be more aggressive. So you would spam Nature's Wrath on calves, you'd use lightning blades primarily to stun things, and you would have 3 stuns, and then you'd have 3 magic counters, which is huge damage as well. So you're constantly stunning, dealing good damage, and then you're constantly using this magic counter. Also, this is ranged, so it doesn't matter who's attacking. So like if there's an enemy archer, you can magic counter that. Or if there's an enemy, literally anything at range in the back row, you can magic counter that. So this is like a more aggressive oriented build. This is a more supportive oriented build. And there's other things too, like there's other ways to squeeze out value out of these. For example, you could try Pursuit. I don't know that'd be the best. This tome is good. It's basically the same as Frostbrand, but instead of the freeze, you get a nice heal on the user. You can also run Quick Barrier. So if you want something more support oriented, you can run Defensive Ring. Activates before allies attacked, reduce damage taken by an ally by 50%. So if you have, you know, some kind of frontliner, let's say you have like Melisandre on the front, wherever she is, it always randomizes the order, so I never know where people are. So like, let's say she's about to get killed by, you know, 2 true attacks, right? First true attack almost kills her, second true attack kills her. If we use Defensive Ring and we Quick Barrier the front row, for example, 50% damage reduction, this allows her to tank true attacks now. So she can now tank true attacks, and then maybe we have someone quick healer, and then she could also tank pretty much anything if she gets hit by any kind of true attack. So she's basically immortal at that point. So pretty huge, like defensive options, offensive options, hybrid options, just a fantastic class with good stats overall, and pretty interesting abilities that are quite nice. And it can give itself evade on the back line, which allows it to tank. Now it is vulnerable to true attacks, but if you have 2 defensive rings, for example, or a unit that can block other units, you could easily tank them. So if you have some kind of like Elaine or some kind of like Joseph, even like something that can apply barrier, protection, anything like this to deal with true attacks, that's really their only weakness, is true attacks, like archers and stuff. So beyond that though, there's units you can just drop into the team to protect them from those. They have good damage, good support, good utility. They could also be made to like spot heal like any class can. So for example, you could run like first aid kit to like chip heal at the end of a battle if you really wanted to. There's other elves that also heal that you can run these with that combo pretty well with them. They can run this, the Necromancer's Lantern. You get this from one of the main missions. Poison, death blow immunity, some magic defense, but activates after an ally is hit. Counterattack an enemy, inflicts blindness and poison. So it does a little bit of magical damage. Poison can be quite valuable if enemies have high health, especially high armor, because poison is percentage based. So the higher your health, the more damage you take, magnitude wise. Blindness causes their next attack to miss. So you could also run this instead. So like, let's say you have like a Necromancer's Lantern, and then you have a protection, defensive ring, and then he prioritizes the front. Or actually, let's just say prioritize front row. So he could defensive ring 3 times, and then she could Necromancer's Lantern 3 times. If we look at those, ranged. Now this says limited. I think this works together, doesn't it? I don't know that ranged. It doesn't say ranged limited, so technically I think these can work off the same attack. You know what? Let's test that. Let's get here. Let's change him. We need someone who will not die that's ranged. Let's put like, we just need a range attack to work. So let's just put him in here. He's gonna get one shot by Melisandre, I think. And then let's get some range attacks. Yeah, let's just test that. Let's see if those can proc at the same time. I'm pretty sure ranged that's not limited can proc at the same time. Yeah, she kills him immediately. She might kill this. Okay, we need more units. These are low level like allies too, so hold on, let's remove him and put her up there. And then another ranged guy just for redundancy. We just need to see a ranged attack. Doesn't really matter who does it or why. This is technically a ranged attack. Have her prioritize front row. Oh, what is this weapon? I haven't checked that out. That's interesting. She will do front row only, just for the example. We'll get a live demonstration of these abilities. So they can provide backline support. Alright, she blocks. Oakley's also has range attacks. Here we go, ranged. Sylphic Barrier. Okay. Vanishing Pursuit. Shield Smite. Defense up. So yeah, they block too. That's a nice thing. They're evade tanks. So even if they get targeted, unless it's a true attack, they typically block it. Okay, and then she got protected. Quick barrier. All buffs removed. Yeah, the other angels are quite hard to hit, but Keen Edge hits right through their evasion, so. Okay, she dodged. Alright, then she got hit with Eagle Eye. Okay. So, what did we learn about that interaction? That's something I haven't tested really quick, but let's see. Does this have to hit? Yeah, I guess that's not good on an evasion tank then. So if she were to have gotten hit, so it didn't activate. I think it does activate at the same time, but the quick barrier is what was important there. And then he did this. He Sylphic barriered. So between the barriers, like even just Sylphic is really good for dealing with like range attacks, but quick barrier is nice for just mitigating any attack that hits. So like assuming you get hit by a true attack, because this would hit through Sylphic's evade, you quick barrier first, so that you just take less damage. And it did allow her to tank a lot of attacks, and if she just had some kind of healing, or if we had more damage against the enemy team, we would have done much better. But you get the idea. Pretty good utility class, has a lot of options. Instead of necromancers, maybe we run this after an enemy attack. So this is better because it's better than the necromancer's lantern because you have to actually get hit. This just activates if they attack. So this is quite a strong build, and this is also a pretty good build. And you can switch this out for something more offensive oriented like this or like this. You can run Bloodbrand Tome to heal, which is nice too if your party is like low on healers. You can run this to heal as needed, to apply that buff to an ally, and then you could also switch back to the ice when it makes sense too. So pretty fantastic class, pretty good. But yeah, that's it for this one. Definitely subscribe if you enjoyed this or found this useful, and I'll see you next one. Peace.